Illinois, July 25th, 1977. A 10-year-old boy named Marlon Lowe is playing in the backyard of his family's home in Lawndale, a small farming town in central Illinois. It is a quiet summer evening. The sky is still light. His mother Ruth watches from nearby. Neighbors are out in their yards. Then two enormous dark shapes appear on the southern horizon. At first, they look like birds, but as they grow closer, Ruth Lowe realizes they are unlike anything she's ever seen. Their wingspan stretches wider than her entire house. They move with a slow, deliberate power, the kind of movement that belongs to something that has never been threatened. They are heading straight for her son. One of them drops. Its talons find Marlon's shoulders. And for a moment, that would define the rest of his family's life. A 10-year-old boy from a small Illinois farming town is lifted from the ground by something that should not exist. Ruth screams and runs. The creature carries Marlon 35 feet before releasing him. He lands on his feet, bruised and shaking, staring at the sky as the birds bank north and vanish over the rooftops. Nobody believed them. Everybody who did believe them wished they hadn't started asking questions, because the Thunderbird does not want to be found. Long before Europeans arrived in North America, indigenous nations across the continent told stories of a creature that ruled the sky. The Ojibwe called it Animiki. The Algonquin called it Benisi. The Lakota Sioux knew it as Wakingyang, the sacred winged being. The tribes of the Pacific Northwest carved its image into totem poles that still stand today, facing the ocean, facing the sky, watching. Across dozens of cultures separated by thousands of miles, the descriptions were remarkably consistent. A bird of supernatural size, so enormous that its wing beats created thunder, and the flash of its eyes produced lightning. Not a predator, not exactly a god, something in between, a force of nature, given wings and will and memory. The Sioux believed the Thunderbird was a protector, a guardian that kept humans safe from the Untahila, dangerous reptilian monsters lurking beneath rivers and lakes. The Thunderbird and the great horned serpent were ancient enemies, locked in a conflict older than human civilization, and human beings existed in the fragile space between them. The Anishinaabe told stories of thunderbirds nesting on mountaintops above the clouds, descending only when called or when the balance between worlds was threatened. Their nests were said to hold eggs the size of boulders. Their feathers, if found, held power. These were not campfire stories. They were cosmological beliefs, held sacred across generations, embedded in ceremony and law and the structure of the world. And while European settlers dismissed them as mythology, something in the American sky kept insisting otherwise. It's worth pausing on this point. Cryptozoology is full of legends that exist in one culture, in one region, attached to one specific piece of geography. The Thunderbird is different. The Thunderbird spans the entire continent, from the Pacific Northwest coast to the Great Plains, to the Gulf of Mexico, from the Ojibwe of the Great Lakes, to the Aztec of Mesoamerica. The giant sky creature appears again and again, described in ways that overlap with suspicious consistency. Anthropologists call it convergent mythology. The same story arising independently in separate cultures. But convergent mythology typically involves universal experiences: death, birth, the sun, the flood. It does not typically involve a specific creature of a specific enormous size with a specific set of behaviors. That kind of consistency, across that kind of distance, usually points to something that was actually seen. Before we reach the cornfields and the cowboys, there's the Piazza. In 1673, French explorers Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet were paddling down the Mississippi River, near what is now Alton, Illinois, when they encountered something painted on the limestone bluffs above the waterline. A mural so large and so disturbing that Marquette wrote about it in his journal with an urgency that his other entries lacked. The image depicted a creature with antlers, red eyes, a scaly body, and enormous wings spread wide. The native people of the region called it the piasa bird, the bird that devours men. The legend held that the piasa had once hunted along the Mississippi, carrying off warriors and eating them whole. A chief named Uatoga devised a plan to destroy it, offering himself as bait while hidden warriors drove the creature away with arrows. The sacrifice worked. The piasa retreated. But the image remained on the bluffs as a warning. The original petroglyph was destroyed by quarry blasting in the 1840s, but Marquette had recorded it, artists had copied it, and the story had already spread far beyond the river. Today, a painted reproduction looks down from those same limestone bluffs near Alton, Illinois. People drive past it on Route 100 every day without stopping. Most of them do not know what it is or what it remembers. April 1890. The Arizona Territory. Two cowboys are riding through the desert south of Tombstone when they spot something descending from the sky ahead of them. It lands in the scrub brush, and it is enormous. What they describe defies easy categorization. The creature has a smooth, leathery body rather than feathers, a long beak lined with teeth, a wingspan that when they later attempt to measure it using their lasso ropes, stretches somewhere between 90 and 100 feet. Its head is roughly the size of a man. The creature is sluggish, apparently exhausted from flight or injured or simply old. The cowboys pursue it on horseback. After several miles, they kill it. On April 26, 1890, the Tombstone Epitaph publishes their account. The story circulates. People want to see proof. And then the photograph appears. Or does it? Here is where the Thunderbird becomes something more disturbing than a simple monster sighting. Because over the following century, dozens of people, researchers, writers, cryptozoologists, and ordinary readers came forward claiming to clearly remember seeing a photograph published in connection with this story. A massive winged creature spread out like a crucifix nailed to the side of a barn. Several men standing alongside it, barely reaching its wing joint. The problem is that no one can find it. Not in the Tombstone Epitaph archives. Not in any contemporary publication. The Library of Congress holds the April 26, 1890 issue on file. There is no photograph. Researcher Mark Hall spent years searching for it and found nothing. Naturalist Ivan Sanderson claimed he had personally seen the photo in a magazine. He could describe it clearly, in detail, but he could never locate it again. Multiple independent people across decades described the same image with the same details and arrived at the same dead end. It has become one of the most discussed examples of the Mandela effect, a shared false memory so vivid and so specific that it defies easy explanation. Either the photograph was real and was systematically removed from the historical record, or thousands of people independently and incorrectly remember the same image that never existed. Neither explanation is comfortable. The 20th century brought new witnesses, and they did not come from the frontier. In the summer of 2001, a wave of giant bird sightings swept through central Pennsylvania. The reports came independently from people who did not know each other, living in different counties. Each of them described a bird unlike anything in the modern field guide. One witness, a resident of Greenville, reported watching the creature circle overhead for nearly 20 minutes. She estimated its wingspan at 15 feet and its body length at 5 feet. She was calm, precise, and specific. She noted that it moved like a living bird. It flapped. It was not a glider, not a plane, not a drone, not a kite. Other sightings came from Clinton County, from communities along the Susquehanna River from the ridgelines of the northern Appalachians. Researchers began mapping the reports and noticed something they had not expected, a geographic pattern. The sightings clustered along the same river valleys and mountain corridors, suggesting something that had a range, a route, a territory. Andrew Gable, a researcher who spent considerable time documenting the Pennsylvania wave, noted that several witnesses were hunters and outdoorsmen, people who spent significant portions of their lives in the field, people who knew what a turkey vulture looked like, what a great blue heron looked like from below, what the optical illusions of distance and open sky could do to perceived scale. They were not misidentifying eagles. Pennsylvania has always been a place where old things survive. The Lawndale incident was not the first time a Thunderbird had reportedly made contact with a human being in the American Midwest. In 1948, a series of reports emerged from downstate Illinois, from Glendale, from Alton, from Freeport, all describing a creature of enormous size flying low over farmland and small towns. One witness in Freeport described it as the size of a Piper Cub aircraft. The reports lasted several weeks and then stopped. Illinois, it seems, has a particular relationship with the sky. And now we return to Lawndale. July 25th, 1977, the evening of an ordinary summer day that was about to become anything but. Marlon Lowe was not alone when it happened. That is the part the skeptics never adequately explain. In addition to his mother Ruth, there were other witnesses in the neighborhood. Adults, neighbors, people with nothing to gain and reputations to protect. They saw the birds. They confirmed the size. Some of them described the white ring around the neck that Ruth and Marlon both independently noted, a detail that matched no bird native to the American Midwest. The investigation that followed was brief and dismissive. Officials cited the California condor, wingspan up to 9.5 feet, critically endangered, not recorded in Illinois in modern times, and labeled the case a misidentification. The possibility that two critically endangered California condors had somehow appeared in central Illinois simultaneously and had cooperated in an attack on a child was apparently considered more plausible than the alternative. The Lowe family did not seek fame. There was no book deal, no talk show appearance, no reward. There was only the story, repeated consistently for decades, and the community that quietly turned away from them for telling it. Marlon Lowe grew up. He never changed his account. The sightings continued. In October of 2002, residents near Togiak, Alaska, began reporting something in the sky that they could not explain. The Anchorage Daily News covered the story. Multiple witnesses described a bird with a wingspan they estimated at 14 feet, substantially larger than any bird currently listed in the Alaskan Field Guide. Among the witnesses was a bush pilot named John Bucher, who encountered the creature while flying. He estimated the wingspan based on comparison with his Cessna 207's wing, a man who spent his working life reading distances and sizes from the cockpit. His estimate was 14 feet. He described the creature as fully feathered, dark in color, and moving with the effortless soaring flight of a bird that knew exactly what it was doing in the sky. Bucher was not hysterical. He was not seeking attention. He filed his account and went back to flying. He was not alone. The village of Togiak, a Yupik community of roughly 800 people on the shores of Bristol Bay, produced multiple independent witnesses who described the same creature over the same 2-week period. The tribal community, whose ancestors had told stories of great sky creatures for generations, received the sightings with less surprise than the journalists who covered them. One elder, when asked what he thought the creature was, reportedly shrugged and said it had always been there. The reporters had simply never looked up before. Alaska remains one of the last places in North America where something this large could theoretically survive undetected. The wilderness is vast. The population is sparse. The terrain defies comprehensive survey. There are river valleys in interior Alaska that have never been systematically explored. If a relict population of an enormous flying creature existed anywhere on the continent, Alaska is where you would look. Science has its answers. They are not entirely satisfying. The Teratorn is the candidate that appears most often in serious discussions, a family of giant birds that walked alongside prehistoric humans in North and South America. The largest known species, Argentavis magnificens, had a wingspan estimated at 23 feet and weighed roughly 170 pounds. It went extinct somewhere around 6 million years ago, or so the current fossil record suggests. The honest answer is that the fossil record is incomplete. We know what we have found. We do not know with certainty what we have not found. Teratorns were soaring birds, dependent on thermals for long-distance flight, exactly the behavior witnesses describe. Several researchers have noted that the wingspan estimates from Thunderbird sightings fall consistently in the range of what a surviving large Teratorn might plausibly produce. Others point to pterosaurs, the great flying reptiles of the Mesozoic era. The pteranodon had a wingspan of up to 20 feet. Some reports, particularly the older accounts describing smooth, leathery skin and a lack of feathers, fit a pterosaur more neatly than any known bird. The possibility is considered essentially impossible by mainstream science. No pterosaur fossils younger than 66 million years have been confirmed. There is a third possibility that serious researchers rarely dismiss outright, that the Thunderbird is a known species, simply larger than any specimen yet collected. The harpy eagle, the largest eagle in the world, has a wingspan of up to 7 feet, a relict population of an unknown giant eagle, something between a modern condor and Argentavis, surviving in remote mountain terrain, would not necessarily leave evidence that finds its way into scientific hands. Large animals die in inaccessible places. Their bones scatter and degrade and become part of the geology. In 1938, a living coelacanth was pulled from the waters off South Africa. The coelacanth was a fish believed to have been extinct for 66 million years. Its existence had been written off as impossible. The fisherman who caught it did not know what he had. The scientist who identified it nearly fainted. The lesson of the coelacanth is simple. Absence of evidence from the laboratory is not the same as absence of existence in the world. But the accounts keep coming. What remains, at the end of all the theories and archives and investigation, is the testimony. Hundreds of accounts across thousands of years from cultures that had no contact with one another, describing the same creature moving through the same sky. Consider what it means that this legend has survived everything thrown at it. It survived the arrival of European settlers who had no category for it. It survived the Industrial Revolution, the railroad, the telegraph, the newspaper, all of which should have produced definitive evidence of something this large, if it existed. It survived the age of aviation, when human beings finally shared the sky with whatever else might live there. It survived the internet, which has produced no verified photograph, no confirmed specimen, no DNA, no feather, and yet has produced thousands of new sightings from credible witnesses in credible places, right up to the present day. Most legends weaken over time. The Thunderbird does not weaken. It accumulates. The sky above North America is the same sky it has always been. The Ojibwe still tell stories of Anamiki. The limestone bluffs above the Mississippi still bear the painted image of the Piazza. The families who reported what they saw in Lawndale and Pennsylvania and Alaska have never recanted. And somewhere in the archives of a newspaper in Tombstone, Arizona, there may